the AHEPA Voice District 6 podcast, brought to you by Tsougranis Media, in collaboration with BronxNet. Please note that the views and opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Tsougranis Media, AHEPA, BronxNet, the program sponsors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Voices of AHEPA. We have a very esteemed AHEPAN here today.
Assemblyman Mike Benedetto, New York State Assembly in the 82nd District, which represents Throggs Neck, Pelham Bay, Co-op City and City Island, and parts of Morris Park and Westchester Square.
He's been in AHEPA for
many years, since somewhere around 1988.
1988. Yes, yeah. Actually, you even have it on your page. Up in the
I'm
assembly.
proud of being an AHEPA,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of my association going back into those years where former Councilman Michael DeMarco introduced me to AHEPA, and he was an AHEPA, and I became involved in it back then, and I have a lot of good memories.
All right, so let me just say that part of what we're doing here is we're trying to connect all the different branches of AHEPA together in order for us to know who we are. Because if we know who we are, we can work together. We can create the synergy needed in order to do good things for the community. And it's also important to know who our AHEPANs are. It's been decades since you've been a member, and you also mentioned a very important name, DeMarco. All right, DeMarco, if people don't know it, Peter Tsougranis chapter, you're a member of the Peter Tsougranis chapter right here in the Bronx. Yes. And DeMarco, he was a councilman, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a city councilman for approximately 30 years.
30 years. And outside of our church, we have a stone for the AHEPANs who were very instrumental in building the church. And his name is the first name. And I know that he was very much loved. I also had the opportunity to bump into his wife. She was listing her house at some time. He had the beautiful house right on the water with the riparian rights in the dock.
Yeah.
Country club proper.
Beautiful, beautiful house. I remember him out there, in hip boots, because one storm came through and he was preventing a giant telephone pole, I guess, that was being washed in and headed to his double doors, his glass double doors, and would have smashed him with the flood. Good memories of that house.
Right.
Lots of Michael.
Lots of good memories. Now, when I did go to meet his wife and I sat down with her, she didn't know who I was. She just called me arbitrarily.
Oh, did she?
And then I mentioned that I was part of the Greek church. And then she mentioned my uncle Gus, And then she was saying about how they were always at the house. They were playing cards until 4 o'clock.
That's what they were doing. That's right. I was never drawn into the card playing circle, but they were good people, all of them. And my association with Mike and him bringing me into AHEPA, AHEPA used to have at the Greek church, which used to be a major fundraising night for them, Greek bingo. and to go, and it was always held in and around Halloween. So it was a Halloween bingo, and we would decorate the incoming vestibule to get into the gym. Like a haunted house, and people had to walk down different alleyways and be scared and all the things associated with Halloween. And we would work for hours on that. And the people I worked with, Gus and John Corres, and they were just wonderful. And I was so amazed at how good these people are, just as a general group of people. I enjoyed myself.
So DeMarco loves so much the Greek community that not only was he very involved in the church, but his children went to the Greek school.
Yes. It's a wonderful institution. They were on the verge of closing at various times during the course of the year. And through their tenacious grit, that they were able to keep it going, and I like to think that I may have helped in those areas a little bit. But it's such a good school. I would go there occasionally and read a story day, and then talk to the kids. And gee, it's just wonderful to see the lights in the eyes of these kids who are in the 7th and 8th grade, about to become young people, and they're thinking people. And it's great to see for what our future leaders will be like.
We actually call it the bubble. My son graduated last year. My daughter's in the 7th grade now, and I just came back from the pre-K celebration that we had over at the school now. So you've always been an integral part of that. And now, even though you're not Greek, you are of Italian descent, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. But I recognize good people when I see them, and I love to associate myself with good people. I've been doing that all my life. I don't know what it is, but whether I was teaching, whether I was a kid and developing my friends and going through life, I managed to associate
and that's
myself
how it should be. And you were mentioned before, I think at this time, a lot of the people who even non-Greeks see the school and even the church as a safe haven, as a place to send their kids to school. I believe maybe the kids in the school now are 50% Greek. We have people of all religions, all denominations, and they just see it as just a beacon of just lower class sizes. My daughter's class size is 15 students.
Yes.
It's also not expensive. We're talking about $5,000 a year, $6,000 a year, depending on the grade.
It's almost considered a gift,
right?
That amount of money, yes.
Right. So it's a nice alternative. It's a safe haven, and they do a good job over there. I'm proud to be part of that community. I'm also happy that you also have chosen it to be like a sister or a brother organization for you, and that you're so active in AHEPA. Now, on 2 notes. First of all, thank you as an AHEPan. When we have AHEPA Day, when we celebrate AHEPA, you always donate the food after the church service so that we can basically say thank you to the past members of AHEPA who've passed. We say the blessing for the past members. We also do a blessing for the living. And then afterwards, you are kind enough in order to donate the food, the muffins, the eggs, so we could go and have the trapezi, as we say in the Greek community. So I do want to mention that. And going back to the bingo night and the Halloween party, that's coming back. So
good. I love to play bingo. It's just fun.
Right. So that's going to be one of our fundraisers, which we could keep on doing the good things that we do for the church, for the school, and for the community at large. Nice. All right. And we always thank your support. Now, I want people to understand who you are, because in a lot of ways, we do call the school a bubble, our little community here a bubble. And even though we have 28 chapters and thousands of members throughout the state, when I mention your name, people don't know that you're a member of AHEPA. You're a supporter of AHEPA. And the fact that you're in charge of the education committee is massive. So you know what? Part of what we're trying to do here in this podcast is just make sure that all the points connect, so that we have the synergy needed in order to help each other, in order to know who's who, and in order to have the synergy in order to make our communities better.
Good, Greg. Thank you for that. I've been I've really been very lucky in my life. I've only wanted to do two things professionally: teach and be in public service. And, gee, that's what I've done, and it's very fulfilling.
Right. I mean, if I go on to your biography on the site, you were basically you earned your master's in social studies and education. So you're a historian and an educator. All right. You spent 35 years teaching in elementary and secondary school up until 1974. Lady of Assumption, Pelham Bay. Then you went to the public school system, where you taught at PS 60, right?
PS 160 in Co-op City.
Yeah, in Co-op City. Now, yeah. So education is a very big part of your life. Now, you're the chairman of the education committee in Albany, and last time I met you was actually last year. You just came back from the budget meeting now. And last year, I was what they call the big ugly, where you stood up and you basically were happy because you were able to get a lot of money for education so that our children are educated and able to compete on a world stage when it comes to education, the skills make sure they have the education, the skills they need. Tell us something about that.
Yeah, it's one of the accomplishments, I think, when people ask me, what have I done over the years? It certainly is a great honor having taught for 35 years and then going into public service. And then about 6-7 years ago in public service, I was given the honor to head the New York State Assembly Committee on Education. And we're talking $40 billion worth of money we pour into education now every single year. And it's a big job allocating that money and speaking to all the districts throughout the state of New York. There are over 750 school districts in the state of New York. And give it budget time, they all want to speak to you, and they're all pleading for money. And so you have to negotiate all that. And one of the great things, the courts years ago determined that the formula for New York State was wrong, and not providing enough money to educate children and educate children primarily in cities, in urban areas of the state. And we had to form a formula to do that. And for years, we struggled to get that. It was only during my term, within the last 5 years or so, that we fully funded education in New York State, and we still do today. It was a monumental achievement, and I'm very happy for that. How lucky am I to have been a teacher and love the whole process of teaching and educating the youth to be the leaders of tomorrow, than to chair the education committee and have something to do at least with caring for these kids. Very satisfying.
All right. What are some of the top concerns in education?
Well, right now, one of the big concerns is artificial intelligence, AI, and what's going to happen with that. What's going to happen, how you teach kids. Are kids going to be relying on AI to do their work for them and not being able to process and think logically? That's one of the major things that we have been tackling just recently, and there we have many discussions. It took several years of discussions and contemplation about what we're going to do with cell phones in the schools. Okay, and finally last year we decided to make a cell phone ban so kids won't be distracted during the school day, so kids won't be bullying other children during the school day. So things are not being arranged to meet after school and come down on somebody for what they did. It took a while to do that. You know, education is always changing. And one of the big things in which it has changed and is going right now is in New York State. We would always require, since the beginning of the century, to graduate from high school, you better pass 5 Regents examinations. You know, be it in social studies and math and English or whatever it might be, you better pass that. They are now developing underneath the guidance of the State Board of Regents and the Commissioner of Education, Betty Rosa, a new way to evaluate high school children. That's a major change, and we are looking forward to see how that is rolled out in the schools. No longer are we going to say, all you kids, you got to pass these Regents. The Regents will still be there for those who want to take it, but other children can be assessed in different ways, and according to many of their strengths. Their strengths being in the arts, strengths that will be able to get you going for life. How are you able to think thoughtfully and to process information that could come up with good conclusions? Should be part of the graduation criteria. It's a new thing. I happen to think it's a great thing and a wonderful initiative. And today's regents, Chancellor Young and Commissioner Betty Rosa, Commissioner of Education, have done a fantastic job, as well as the other regions putting this together.
Now, I have a little confession.
Yeah.
After September 11th, I lost my business. I had a furniture business. No one was buying furniture, and I was a young man. I didn't have the depth, and it was probably wise that I got out at that time, because no one was buying furniture after September 11th. So I joined the master's program and became a teacher. I thought that I would downsize and, not work 100 hours a week in a small business, and I would become a teacher and I'd have my summers off. I lasted 3 years. It's not as easy as everybody thinks.
No, it isn't, nor should it be. We are doing the most important job in our society in making sure our society goes forward and producing the people who are going to run it. And people say, "Oh, gee, great job! You go in at 8:30 in the morning and you leave at 3 o'clock. Summers are off." Boom. And wish that was true. The hours you put in after school, doing lesson plans, preparing for the next day, working after school with the individual tips. It just reminds me. I remember when I first started teaching. And I first started teaching my first 5 years or so in Our Lady of the Assumption School in Pelham Bay, which is only blocks away from the Greek Institute. And I was a social studies teacher, and I remember I would give tests in history. Tell them I'm going to give a test on this chapter, first 4 chapters, and I would have the kids write essays on whatever it might be, the start of the Civil War, the origins of World War I, whatever it might be. And the kids would have to write these paragraphs out and give it to me to mark. Well, to prepare that test, it would take me maybe 10 minutes. I just write down those, 5 questions. Okay. To mark those tests, though, to mark the test of 20 kids I have in my class would take me hours upon hours. And I wondered, am I doing the right thing? Years later, I've got one of my first students coming back to the school just to say hello, and he was in West Point. And he told me, Mr. Benedetto, you making us write those paragraphs and compositions, and we had to think about what we're doing. That put me so far ahead of all the other kids in the class. I want to thank you for that. And gee, that's just a great memory. And it kind of means, yeah, sometimes you have to do the hard work, but it's worth it in the end.
So I was a teacher 3 years, and I think we have something else in common is that I was a special ed teacher.
Oh, my.
And I even taught in District 75, which is, which
more
is
severe.
More severe for emotionally disturbed and what they would consider children who have emotional issues also.
Yes. Yes.
All right, but I'll tell you a quick story because it opened up my eyes.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to become super teacher, and I told my kids that if they didn't do their homework, if they didn't earn enough points, that I would come knock on their doors and visit them. And of course, a lot of these kids, they really believe everyone's lost hope in them. And really to be a good teacher, the only times the kids really listen to you, because they're so used to seeing transient people come and go, they think everyone's in it for the paycheck. And when I told them that I was going to knock on their door, they thought, this guy's just pulling our leg. But it gets interesting because the first week went by, a couple of the kids didn't do their homework, and me and the para knocked on a few doors. And I knocked on the door. Of course, the administration heard about this and thought that I was a liability at that point.
Uh-huh.
But I knocked on the door of one of the parents. She opened up, and she was like, "How can I help you?" I said, "I'm your son's teacher. And he didn't do his homework. Mind if I come in?" And she opened up the door. We sat down on the kitchen table, and then she starts to cry. And I'm like, I'm just here to, I'm not doing anything to hurt him or that he's not in trouble. It's just that, when he comes home, just make sure that he does his homework. But the eye-opening experience for me was that she started to cry. And then she said, "I never learned how to read." And then you figure out you're dealing with intergenerational illiteracy or intergenerational issues. And then they expect the teacher to solve the world's problems. And so many times there's a scapegoat in the situation where there's a larger societal issue that needs to be addressed. And for me, that was one of the many eye-opening experiences where, a child comes home and if he's lucky, he could do his homework by himself, but there's no support for him there. So these are the children, and in fact, all children, but for me, that was an aha moment. And for me and you being special ed teachers in the inner city, and I was also a teacher right across the street from where the original Throggs Neck was in the South Bronx on Forest Avenue when my grandfather was an immigrant. So, fine, we moved a little bit more north, eventually we go to Westchester, wherever else we go, we find opportunity. All right. But I just wanted to share that story because I want people to understand that there's things outside the box that we just don't realize if we come from a blessed home. Not everyone comes from a blessed home.
You're absolutely right. I can probably tell you, so many stories similar to that. That was one of the things when I became chairperson in doing the budget, the second year budget, and the staff I was talking to. Well, what are your priorities? Well, I told them I do the foundation aid and so on, but they also said anything else. And I was kind of unsure what they were talking about. Okay. But I finally said, well, I really would like to do something for special education. And they said, okay. And that's what we've been trying to do each year. One of the big problems we have in education is that the special education budget for preschool kids, for the more intense kids who need therapies and special education locations, that is held not by the state legislature, but the money for that comes from the governor's office. So while we want more money for them. We are not that free to fund these schools with the right amount of money. And so consequently, you have teachers in the public school, and Joe Smith teaching special ed in the public school gets $100,000 salary. Okay, the same teacher teaching in the special education school, okay, might be making $70,000. What a disparity here. And how do you keep teachers in special education where there is that disparity? But that's one of the problems we have. It's one of my most disappointing things I've been doing, not being able to get some equity in special education. But we'll keep trying, and we've made some efforts.
Okay, let's harp a little bit more on education. Now, one of the things about middle class, which I think most of the Hellenic community is, we've been immigrants 100 years now, right, is just the specialized schools. Now, I'm very happy that they expanded it, because originally when I was a kid, it was just 3. It was Stuyvesant, Bronx High School of Science, and Brooklyn Tech. Now we have 7. So we expanded it so that, we talked about special ed and those needs, but also what are we doing in order, or what is your opinion on the specialized schools? Because for someone like me, if my son didn't make one of those specialized schools, there's a big chance that I'd be spending minimum $25,000 at Iona or one of the other private schools just to make sure that my son or my kids had the best opportunity out there. So
I understand.
Where do we stand? Where are we going with the specialized schools in New York City? Because I know that's a very big concern. Or even just making sure that there's quality schools out there so that our kids get the best, because that's what we're fighting for.
Yes.
That's what we're all fighting for.
That is the absolute truth. The specialized schools, there's been a lot of debate about them, okay? I believe we should have the specialized schools because they are outstanding. If you say to somebody in Texas, oh, I went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City, wow, you will get people who, if they know anything about education, they'll know. Or the Bronx High School of Science. These schools have a reputation of putting out quality people, okay? We have a lot more quality people than the schools allow to take in.
Which is why I'm happy they expanded it to 7.
Exactly, it should. Not only expanded to 7, one of the efforts I've been trying to do is having alliances between New York City high schools and colleges. So one of the colleges that's been around and doing this is Bard College. They have several high schools that they are in partnership. We have one in the Bronx, there's one in Queens, and I think there's one in Manhattan, okay? They come out, they're not one of the specialized schools. Anybody can go to them and so on. You probably have to take a test and meet up with certain admission requirements, but they're outstanding schools. I want more of that. I want to know why you have a school here, Manhattan College, for instance. Okay, I think it's Manhattan University now, they call it, and Fordham University. Well, are they in partnership with a high school? And why not? Okay, they should. And not only that, I want to see partnerships with major institutions here in the state of New York. So you've got the, in the Bronx Zoo. Well, Bronx Zoo has a great endowment. They need certain quality type people to get into whatever the field is concerning animals. Why aren't they partnering with a high school? And what are they doing that way? One high school, Clinton, is just a few blocks away from. Wouldn't that be a natural type of thing? Clinton School with the Bronx Zoo partnership?
You know what? You opened up a can of worms with a lot of ideas because we're having real talk here.
Yeah.
And I will say that the experience of when I went to high school, you basically took a test. 3 specialized schools. Now there's 7.
Yep.
But there are also schools that are not specialized schools, test based, that are just as good in criteria.
Outstanding, yes.
Like for example, you mentioned Bard. I believe, like when we were going down the list, because back in the days you went to your zone school, or if you were lucky, you made a specialized school. Now the way the system works is that you apply to multiple different schools inside of the school system. That you give the grades. You might have to write an essay, and there are schools outside. So it's not just that 7, but it's also schools that have adapted themselves, and many of them have linked up. I believe there's one, Townsend is one of them.
Townsend Harris, girls' school out in Queens, outstanding.
And also, I think it's there's a college on the City College, I believe, or Columbia, one of the major colleges. There's more options. Is that the way they do it now is different than it was before. But now, I also want to say that AHEPA, American Hellenic Education Progressive Association. So. We have tons of education programs that I'm hoping maybe you could get in touch with the people that are in charge of our education programs and our scholarships program. We have a district level. We've raised a few $100,000. We give out scholarships. It's for AHEPANs or descendants of AHEPANs.
Sure.
Right. And then on a national level, there's millions of dollars of scholarships that are available. So, you know what, we are pushing on that front. All right. And now, we only have an hour, and I could talk to you forever. Okay, but the other thing that you're very big in is something else that AHEPA is very big in, which is veterans.
Oh my, yes.
So the first thing when I went to your webpage, they discussed the fact that you're the chairman. They have here that you're the chairman of the Education Committee, but you're the Committee on Labor, Committee on Rules, Committee on Ways and Means, member of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Task Force, which is another thing we're going to touch on because that's a whole history in itself. Member of the subcommittee for MWBEs, and then also member of subcommittee on home ownership and stabilization of affordable housing, which I could talk to you forever about since I am in real estate. But you had a whole page dedicated to veterans.
Right. Everything happens in Albany with seniority. Okay, a freshman member coming in to the assembly is there, and one of the 150 assembly people. But you don't chair a committee right away. You're expected to learn the system and how it operates and so on, and it generally takes maybe 5 years before you get a committee assignment. My first committee assignment, and I say maybe the best committee I had was the Veterans Committee I was chairman of. I later on became chairman of cities and the cities committee and then education. But the Veterans Committee, my work with them, I'm so proud. I'm sorry. And I never would have left them if the speaker didn't tell me to move on. I always had a great love for veterans. I knew of the debt we have to those people who served our country, protected our country, and all too often got maimed in battle and gave their lives sometimes in battle. And this year, and it's not on my webpage because I don't think we've updated it yet. Just 2 weeks ago, we passed a law. Myself with Senator Natalia Fernandez. We partnered on a bill that I passed several months ago. She just got to pass last week, establishing in New York State a Veterans Bill of Rights.
Yeah, I saw that. What exactly is part of the Veterans Bill of Rights?
Well, it's guaranteeing and many things that should be guaranteed. guarantee that all veterans, no matter what they're working or applying for, or got to be treated equally, like any other citizen in the state of New York. That the services that are afforded to veterans in New York State are explained to them and guaranteed that they know what services are available, and also what federal services are available to them. Um, um, and it just enumerates various things that they should, be aware of and have a right to all of these services for the service that they gave to our country. It's a guarantee that we're going to treat them right. And
Right, so,
I'm proud of that.
we have one of the pillars of AHEPA is helping our veterans. So we just had the Memorial Day parade in Douglaston, in Littleton.
Okay.
And the Grand Marshal was an AHEPA. And that was the third podcast that we did. He was in the Air Force. He was in Army Intelligence. He came on the show just like you did. And we actually were put in the 1st Battalion in the parade. And it was a big honor for AHEPA to be there. We pulled out the float. We put the Grand Marshal in front. And we showed the respect to the veterans that we deserved. We go down, we lay the wreath, both in Greece and in the America, for the unknown soldier, from what I understand, as well. But really, one of the things that AHEPA does is we have the service dogs for veterans. Mm-hmm. And it costs $15,000 in order to properly train one of these dogs in order to then give to a veteran. And AHEPA on a national level has donated hundreds of these service dogs to animals. Like, I don't know if you're aware with that, but you know what? I'm going to tell the people who are in charge of the Veterans Committee who you are, because it's a disconnect when we have an AHEPA who's done so much for the community, so much for the church, so much for AHEPA, so much for everybody, who is in this position of negotiating. And you know what? We just need to be out there and bring that synergy to the table. So,
we do put together a budget every single year. And how are we going to allocate money into what organizations are going to get, and so on. And if you're out there doing things for our veterans, wow, that should be considered. And I think in the budget. When I was chairman of the budget, there was an awful lot of talk about PTSD, okay, and veterans suffering, and therapies for veterans. And I was working with many different groups who were looking for funding. Upstate Farms, for instance, who would have the veterans come in and care for the horses, okay, and how that was so therapeutic for them, okay. The efforts you're doing with dogs will have, in many cases, the same type of therapeutic, whatever the word I'm searching for, will be very therapeutic as well, and certainly worthy to be supported. Please let me talk to people, and we will go forward with this. Maybe.
All right, now you also are on the housing committee as well.
I used to be on the housing committee.
But you are involved in housing, and you definitely...
Of course, yeah. I've got Co-op City in my district, Co-op City being the largest cooperative in the state of New York, if not the entire country. It's foolish of me not to be concerned about.
Now, you mentioned Co-op City. So that's part of you have Pelham Bay, you've got parts of Morris Park, you got all of Soundview, you've got City Island, you've got Orchard Beach.
I have a strange district.
I think it's a great district.
Oh, I think it's a great district too. And,
I live in that district. My business is in that district. So you know what? I call it home. But going back to the combination of services, because I'll bring my real estate experience into to this. We might build housing and affordable housing, right? But when it comes to veterans and even for people who have mental illness, the housing we need to build at times need to have supportive services. Like I used to do more rentals than I do now, but when I did rentals, I remember that I would have a preference for veterans. The VA would call me up. We have a veteran, and sometimes we'd run into difficulties because of mental health. I mean, we had one veteran who, when he moved in, thought that we were poisoning him because there was an air vent.
Yeah.
And then he took a roller and he put vinegar all over the walls because he thought that it would, what I'm saying? So
yes,
we have to provide housing, but one of the issues that I'm seeing, especially in the inner cities, is that there needs to be some housing with wraparound services when they are aware, because it doesn't do a service to the individual to be put into housing. This is my opinion. In the beginning of the episode, it says, the opinions are not in the responsibility of, we have a big. But from my personal experience, fine, it's good to have housing, but it's not a service to have somebody who might have gone through a trauma and then put him in a community where he could do harm to himself or harm to others. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, because many of these men have served their nation. And even if they haven't served their nation, someone with mental illnesses needs wraparound services.
Absolutely. I mean, I would think if I go to battle and I'm seeing explosions, I'm seeing friends of mine die right in front of me, how would that affect me on my well-being going forward? How would that mentally affect me? It's gotta have some impact. That great program that they did years ago, maybe 25 years ago, Band of Brothers, okay, which followed a band of men, basically true men, a part of through World War II, and they generally stayed together for the entire warrior, and they also interviewed them, and sometimes they wake up in the middle of the night having nightmares. You repress these terrible things you see, and how and what it does on your psyche can be terrible. Yeah, people need services to get themselves through that. Whatever the services might be, certain counseling services, as you say, dogs for veterans. And smart housing, and it's not that easy to build, but smart housing for people like this should also include some nearby, and ideally within the housing itself, places where they can go for those services. An apartment building which just houses, veterans would be wonderful, and certainly they do have them here and there, but not enough. It's a problem, and it's a problem that must be looked into and helped. Yeah.
All right, so you know what? We could just talk forever, and we only have an hour. But one thing I do want to bring, I'm going to bring in my real estate experience now that I have you, and I could actually. I'm very fortunate because I'm involved in a pilot program where people are buying affordable housing co-ops outside of the lottery system. Now, this is a city issue. It's an HPD issue.
Yeah.
All right. But the point is that I'm very happy with the program because, like, for example, one of the shows we did on my podcast, we had an individual never bought a home before. He bought a co-op, and his monthly payment was, he got 2 grants. So he brought the price down from, it was 90% AMI. He basically was living for $1,500 a month, and he owned his own apartment with a maintenance of $468 for a brand new, beautiful building in Soundview in your district.
That's wow. In Soundview?
Leland and Wolf was the developer.
It's just a little bit outside of my district.
Okay, right. Okay, you know where I'm talking about then. Yeah, but now I'd love to advocate for not just 4% of the HPD's budget, but for more, because we don't want to have a renter society. We want to have people who own and have equity.
I agree with you.
And one of the things that I'd like to tweak it, if because I don't have the power to tweak it, but the legislative does, is that one thing that I would like is that right now they limit the appreciation to 2% a year, which for me, you know what? They probably said, what's the average of inflation? 2% a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the logic, because if you're getting a 40-year tax break, someone shouldn't be able to come by it and then say, look, you don't have to be taxed for 40 years. Now I want to make a 20% profit and hold it for 6 months and flip it. All right. But why can't we peg that, or maybe it's a good idea or not a good idea, in order to peg it to inflation, some kind of a CPI index? Because one of the issues is right now we're running at 4% appreciation. If you're limiting their appreciation to 2% a year, then the point of real estate is to hedge against inflation in an environment where we have massive inflation. You know, you want to hold on to assets that appreciate in time. So if we're telling people buy this, but it's 2% appreciation, you know what I'm saying? A final average out over time, but I really think that that's one of the tweaks that maybe HPD and the city should be looking at. And I'm taking advantage of my time with you in order just to put it out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, and certainly, and I haven't talked to him in a while, okay, but he's a good friend, Kenny Burgos, who's now, I don't even know what exactly.
We interviewed him for the New York City.
Did you really?
Check,
yeah.
So Kenny Burgos is in charge of the New York Apartment Association. And now we'll go back into the Puerto Rican thing, because the Puerto Ricans have blessed us also. So I'm the real estate chair for the New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, cool.
And Nick Lugo and his crew and Cindy, they put me on in order to talk about real estate. And it just shows how inclusive they are. But I also see that you're part of the you're part of the Puerto Rican caucus, or what is this I saw on the page over here? You're part of the
Yes. There is a caucus, several caucuses up in Albany. Okay, and I am part of the Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus. Simply because, to be honest with you, because more than 25% of my district happens to be Hispanic.
Right.
Okay, and for membership of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Caucus, that's one of the prerequisites. So I mainly am part of it, and I will not lie to you. I am probably never really participated in it, simply because I have so much to do elsewhere with education that I really can't. But yeah, on paper, I am part of that caucus, and they are a good caucus, advocating for their people of Latino descent. And I do attend their annual SOMOS conferences. And as a matter of fact, I seem to remember meeting you down there.
One of the first times I approached you was at SOMOS. We had an issue that we wanted to discuss. We shared a beer together. You were jovial, happy, kind, and I appreciate it. All right, so we only have about 5 minutes left.
Good.
I do want to just mention that I see here you established a New York Baby Opportunity Fund. What's that all about?
Oh, wow. It's, you have disappointments during your tenure, and I have several of them, okay? But the baby bonds that we would call it, it was a bill I introduced. It didn't catch fire. We couldn't get it done, but it was a bill I introduced that for every child born during the course of a year, that child will open up a savings account. Okay, the parent of the child would, and $1,000 would automatically be deposited in that baby's account. Hopefully, the parent will, over the years, add a little money to it. And so by the time the child is 18, the child has a bankroll, whatever the bankroll is, and so on. So that was the intent of that bill. It just unfortunately never grew. Yeah.
I mean, what else is on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind right now is because you were talking about one of the disappointments. The other disappointment, what I'll be fighting for it again next year, is that I have my football band, okay, that I have been fighting for. And to explain that, I believe in this particular state and throughout the country, we should prevent children who are 12 years old or under from playing tackle football. And the reason for that is because during the ages of 5 years old to 12 years old, it is the most rapid time for brain development. And during that time, I don't think, and I believe most doctors would too, the science is there, that if you're crashing your head onto the solid ground, frozen ground, okay, people banging into your body, it's going to hurt your brains. And we should not do that. Let kids play tackle football when their brain gets a little more mature and they're able to compete without hurting their development.
Okay, so now some other quality of life issues you fought for.
Yeah.
Smoke shops.
Oh my, yes. That was a
and also people just living in tractor trailers. Right?
Oh, well, not just living, but the proliferation of tractor trailers on the streets in our area. One of the problems we have living at this particular section of the Bronx is that we have I-95, a major truck route throughout the entire East Coast, and by federal law, those trucks must get off the highway from time to time so the drivers can get some sleep. And quite often they come on in and just pull over to the side and they camp out there. Well, that's something they may have to do federally, but gee, after they're finished, they are leaving garbage behind. It makes the area look unsightly. And one of the things is trying to come to grips with that. And my latest idea is, can't we develop a rest stop area just for trucks right off I-95 where they can go to, park their trucks, get a meal, get a room for the night maybe or the afternoon to sleep in. Maybe, get a haircut even. There's all sorts of potentials, but that should be done and get those trailers off the street.
And what about the smoke shops? I think.
And the smoke shops, we have, I in partnership with one of my colleagues, Jennifer Raj Kumar from Queens. We have been working on making sure police are cracking down on smoke shops, illegal smoke shops, where in various neighborhoods, and doing laws against, if you're cracked down and you're found to have been a smoke shop illegally, then you will not be allowed to start another one anywhere else. You'll be banned from that. So I think we've come a long way in that area, and the city is, cracking down on them. And so we've gotten some modicum of success in that area. That's, I think, a good thing.
Okay. Well, I think our time is pretty much up. I thank you for taking the time to come down and talk about you being an AHEPA member, informing us about some of the legislation and some of your past history doing good works for the community. So I thank you very much for your time.
And I thank you, for the time to sit here and talk with you. It was quite enjoyable, and hopefully we reach an awful lot of people here. And let's continue to talk, and for some very worthy programs to maybe we can help out in the budget going forward.
All right, that would be great. So thank
Good.
you again, and thank
Greg,
you. For your
thank
service.
you.
AHEPA Next Gen is where gentlemen ages 30 to 45 come together. High-quality events, real mentorship, friendships that open doors. But it reaches further into service, education, and local impact. It's a pathway to leadership and a chance to represent Hellenic values with purpose. Build strong connections. Give back in meaningful ways. The right circle, the right mission. Built on heritage, focused on the future. Become part of AHEPA Next Gen.
Unlike you and most of you, I was not born in the United States to live and enjoy democracy. I came to the United States from Turkey, where I was a third-category citizen. So when Martin Luther King Jr. had his walk to the courthouse of Selma, Alabama, I decided to join him. So I said, this is my time to take revenge against all those who oppress people. Upon my return, someone called me Prodoti, traitor. Somehow that I should be ashamed of what I have done. Some that I am not an American. Some that I'm not a Christian. I know that civil rights and human rights continue to be the most thorny social issues in our nation. But I will stand for both rights, civil and human, for as long as I live. I feel it a Christian duty and the duty of a man who was born as a slave.